The rain lashed against Chloe's face, mixing with tears and mascara, blinding her. But she didn't need to see, she just needed to run. Behind her, the heavy slap of leather boots on wet pavement was getting closer. "You can't hide, Chloe," Derek screamed, his voice cracking with manic rage. "You're mine." Her lungs burned. Her legs felt like lead. Up ahead, a neon sign flickered through the storm, the Iron Keg. It looked rough, dirty, and dangerous. Perfect. She slammed her shoulder against the heavy oak door, bursting inside. The warmth hit her first, then the smell of stale beer and sawdust. She scrambled to the center of the room, knocking over a bar stool, and collapsed, gasping for air. "He's going to kill me," she screamed, her voice tearing through the smoky air. "Please help me." The door banged open behind her. Derek stood there, drenched, a hunting knife gleaming in his hand, his eyes wild. "I found you, you little." He froze, because the sound of 20 chairs scraping against the wooden floor echoed like a gunshot. 20 men, wearing cuts with the Grim Reaper patch, stood up in perfect unison. The air in the room shifted from a bar fight to a war zone. A giant of a man stepped out from the shadows of the pool table. "You look lost, little man," Brick growled. "Because the exit is behind you, and the hospital is in front of you." Derek's grip on the knife tightened, then loosened. His eyes darted from one biker to another, counting, calculating, realizing. The confidence that had fueled his chase through the rain evaporated like steam off his soaked jacket. This is a private matter," Derek stammered, trying to inject authority into his voice. It came out thin, reedy. "Between me and my girlfriend. We just had a little fight, that's all." Brick didn't move. He stood like a monument, 6'7" of solid muscle and leather, his shaved head gleaming under the dim bar lights. His beard was thick and dark, braided at the chin. When he spoke, his voice was low, controlled, more dangerous than any shout. "That's so." Brick's eyes flicked to Chloe, still on the floor, still shaking. "Ma'am, is this man your boyfriend?" Chloe's voice came out as a whisper. "He was. Not anymore." "And did you have a little fight?" She pulled herself up on a bar stool, and that's when everyone saw it. The purple bruises ringing her throat like a necklace. Fresh, recent, handprint-shaped. The atmosphere in the bar changed. If it had been tense before, now it was murderous. An older man behind the bar, gray-bearded, weathered, with a patch that read "shotgun," set down the glass he'd been polishing. "Brick," he said quietly. "Want me to call the sheriff?" "Not yet." Brick took a step toward Derek. Then another. The other bikers fanned out, forming a semicircle, cutting off any escape route. "See, I think our friend here needs to understand something about respect. About how real men treat women." Derek's hand shook. The knife trembled. "You don't know who you're messing with. My family. Your family." Brick's laugh was cold. "Boy, I don't care if your daddy is the governor himself. You brought that blade into my clubhouse. You threatened a woman under my roof." He extended his hand, palm up. "Give me the knife." "Fuck you, Ott." Brick moved faster than a man his size had any right to. One moment he was 5 feet away. The next, his massive hand had clamped around Derek's wrist like a vice. Derek yelped. The knife clattered to the floor. Brick kicked it aside without looking. "Here's what's going to happen," Brick said, his face inches from Derek's. "You're going to walk out that door. You're going to get in whatever fancy car you drove here. And you're going to forget this woman exists. Because if I see you again, if I even hear a rumor that you've come within a mile of her, they're going to find pieces of you in 3 different counties. We clear." Derek's bladder nearly gave out. He nodded frantically. Brick released him and grabbed him by the collar instead, half dragging, half throwing him toward the door. Derek stumbled, caught himself, and ran, actually ran, out into the rain. Through the window, they watched him sprint down the street, not even looking back. The door swung shut. For a moment, silence. Then Shotgun poured a double whiskey and slid it across the bar toward Chloe. "On the house, darlin'. You look like you need it." Chloe's hands shook so badly she could barely lift the glass. She downed it in one gulp, coughed, and started crying. The bikers gradually sat back down, but the protective energy remained. A few of them positioned themselves near the windows and door, keeping watch. Brick pulled up a chair across from where Chloe now sat at the bar. "You got somewhere safe to go?" he asked, his voice gentler now. She shook her head. I've been hiding in motels. Paying cash. I thought I'd lost him 3 days ago, but he must have been watching my bank account or something. She wiped her eyes. He always finds me. Not anymore, he doesn't, Shotgun said, pouring her another whiskey. Not if Brick says so. A younger biker, maybe 30, with a red beard and a patch that read torch, approached. Want me to follow him? Make sure he actually leaves town. Brick nodded. Take Reaper and chains with you. Don't engage unless he doubles back. Just keep eyes on him. The three bikers grabbed their keys and headed out. Through the window, Chloe heard motorcycles roar to life, then fade into the distance. She looked at Brick, really looked at him for the first time. His face was scarred, a thin line across his left eyebrow, another along his jaw. But his eyes were kind, even if they were surrounded by hard lines. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Don't need to know you to know what's right. Brick leaned back in his chair. My club, we're not angels. We've done things we're not proud of. But we have a code. We protect people who can't protect themselves. Especially women and kids. Chloe's phone buzzed. She jumped, nearly dropping it. The screen showed 17 missed calls from Derek and a new text message. You're dead. Your new friends are dead. I'm coming back with people who won't be scared of some wannabe tough guys. She showed Brick the message, her hands trembling again. Brick's jaw tightened. He took her phone, read the message, and then looked at her seriously. Is there something else you're not telling me? Because that message sounds like more than just a pissed-off ex-boyfriend. Chloe hesitated. Then, slowly, she reached into the inside pocket of her soaked jacket and pulled out a small external hard drive, sealed in a waterproof bag. I'm not just running from Derek, she said quietly. I'm running from his entire family. The Van Cess. Shotgun whistled low. The Van Cess? As in the crime family that runs half the underground gambling in this state. She nodded. Derek's father is Vincent Vance. Derek handles their money laundering. I was an accountant. He hired me 2 years ago, before we started dating. I didn't know what the company really was at first. By the time I figured it out, I was all ready. She touched her throat unconsciously. Trapped. Brick's expression darkened. And the hard drive. Every transaction. Every shell company. Every bribed official. 2 years of evidence. She looked at him with desperate eyes. I was going to take it to the FBI, but I need to survive long enough to do that. Derek knows I have it. That's why he's so desperate to get me back. It's not about me, it's about this. The remaining bikers had gathered closer now, listening. One of them, a massive black man with intricate tattoos covering his arms and a patch reading hammer, spoke up. Brick, this is bigger than a domestic situation. The Van Cess have connections. Cops, judges, enforcers. If they know she's here, then we deal with it, Brick interrupted. The way we always do. Together. He looked around at his brothers. Show of hands. Who votes we keep her safe? Every hand went up. No hesitation. Chloe felt something crack inside her chest, something that had been holding tight for so long. I don't understand. You're willing to go to war with the Van Cess for a stranger. Brick stood up. You stop being a stranger the moment you walk through that door asking for help. Shotgun, lock it down. No one in or out without clearance. Hammer, call our lawyer. We need to know what kind of legal protection we can offer her. And somebody get this woman some dry clothes. A woman emerged from a back room. The only woman Chloe had seen so far. She was in her 40s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a Grim Reaper's t-shirt. I'm Marlene, she said with a warm smile. Shotgun's old lady. Come on, honey, let's get you sorted. Across town, Derek stumbled into his father's estate, still dripping wet, his wrist already bruising where Brick had grabbed it. The mansion was all marble and dark wood, paid for with blood money and broken lives. Vincent Vance sat in his study, a tumbler of 50-year-old scotch in his hand, listening to his son's stammering explanation with increasing fury. Let me get this straight, Vincent said, his voice dangerously calm. You chased that girl through town with a knife. In public. And then you got yourself humiliated by a bunch of bikers. Dad, there were 20 of them. Vincent's fist slammed on the desk. I don't care if there were 100. That girl has enough evidence to put 3 generations of this family in federal prison. And you let her slip through your fingers because you were too busy playing the jealous boyfriend. We can get her back. I'll take some of the boys in. You'll do nothing. Vincent stood, walking to the window. You've done enough damage. The moment you pulled a knife on her in front of witnesses, you made this a problem I have to clean up. He picked up his phone, dialed a number. Marcus? It's Vince. I need you to assemble a team. No, not the usual guys. I need ghosts. People who can make a mess disappear. He paused. The Iron Keg. Yes, the biker bar. I want that place reduced to ash by morning. And I want the girl. Alive. She has something that belongs to me. Derek watched his father make 3 more calls, each one mobilizing another piece of the family's criminal apparatus. Dirty cops to look the other way. Arsonists to throw the firebombs. Muscle to extract Chloe from the rubble. What about me? Derek asked. Vincent looked at his son with something close to disgust. You stay here. You've proven you can't control yourself. This requires precision, not passion. At midnight, the first Molotov cocktail crashed through the window of the Iron Keg. Brick was on his 3rd cup of coffee, reviewing security camera footage with Hammer, when the alarm went off. The sound was a harsh klaxon that sent every biker in the building into motion. Fire. North side, someone shouted. Brick ran toward the source. Flames were already licking up the walls where the window had shattered. But the bikers were ready. Fire extinguishers appeared from behind the bar, from the back room, from under pool tables. The Grim Reapers hadn't survived decades in a dangerous business by being unprepared. Shotgun, get Chloe to the compound. Now, Brick ordered, even as he sprayed foam on the flames. But before Shotgun could move, a second firebomb crashed through the front door. Then a third through the opposite window. Whoever was attacking wasn't trying to scare them. They were trying to burn them alive. Back door? Everyone out. Brick's voice cut through the chaos. The bikers moved like a well-oiled machine, grabbing their gear, covering each other's retreat. Chloe found herself half-carried by Marlene through a smoke-filled hallway, then out into the cool night air of the back alley where motorcycles and trucks were already roaring to life. Get her in the van, Brick shouted, hosing down the last of the flames near the exit to give everyone cover. Hammer pulled up in an armored van. Actually armored, Chloe realized, seeing the reinforced panels and bulletproof glass. This wasn't just a motorcycle club. This was something more organized. As they peeled out of the alley, Chloe looked back to see the Iron Keg engulfed in flames. Men in dark clothes stood across the street, watching. They're not even trying to hide, she whispered. Don't need to, Hammer said grimly from the driver's seat. The Vances own half the cops in this city. By tomorrow, this'll be ruled an electrical fire. No investigation. The convoy of motorcycles and vehicles wound through back roads for 20 minutes before arriving at what Brick had called the compound. It was a fortified property on the edge of town. High chain-link fence topped with barbed wire, security cameras every 20 feet, and a large central building that looked like a cross between a warehouse and a fortress. The gate rolled open, and they pulled inside. As soon as the last vehicle entered, the gate slammed shut and locked with an audible clang. Brick dismounted his bike and walked over to the van. When he opened the door, Chloe saw exhaustion and anger etched into his face, but also determination. Welcome to Sanctuary, he said. No one gets in here without going through all of us first. The compound was a revelation. From outside, it looked industrial and cold. Inside, it was home. There was a full kitchen where someone was already making coffee. A common room with worn couches and a massive TV. Bedrooms down a long hallway. A garage where motorcycles in various states of repair stood like metal sculptures. And everywhere, people. Not just the bikers from the bar, but their families. Women, children, even a couple of dogs. Chloe had expected a gang hideout. What she found was a community. We built this place 10 years ago, Brick explained, leading her down the main hallway. Got tired of the city thinking they could push us around. Out here, we make our own rules, as long as we don't break any laws. He smiled slightly. Well, any major laws. He stopped at a door. This is my room. It's yours now. I can't take your room. You can't and you will. I'll sleep on the couch in the common room. It's more secure anyway, closer to the entrance. He pushed the door open. The room was Spartan but clean. A large bed, a dresser, a small desk. Motorcycle magazines stacked neatly. A window with reinforced security bars. Bathrooms attached. Marlene put some clothes in the dresser. Should be your size. Lock the door, get some rest. We'll figure out our next move in the morning. But Chloe couldn't rest. At 2 a.m., she found herself wandering to the common room where Brick sat on the couch, looking over what appeared to be security protocols. Can't sleep? He asked without looking up. Keep thinking about the bar. It's my fault it burned down. It's Derek's fault. And his father's. Not yours. Brick set down his papers. Come sit. You look like you want to ask something. She sat, maintaining a careful distance. Why do you do this? Protect people, I mean. You could have just called the cops when I ran in. Let them handle it. Brick was quiet for a long moment. When I was 14, my mother left my father. He was like Derek. Worse, maybe. She took me and my sister and ran. We ended up at a women's shelter 3 states away. He stared at his hands. One night, my father found us. Came in with a gun, ready to kill all of us because in his mind, we were his property. Chloe's breath caught. A Vietnam vet was working security that night. Old guy, probably 70. He stepped between my father and my mother. Took a bullet to the shoulder, but didn't go down. Just stood there and said, not today, not ever. Other people came running, the director, a couple of staff. My father ran. Got arrested 2 days later. Brick looked at Chloe. That old man saved my life. My mother's life. My sister's. He didn't know us. Didn't have to help. But he did, because it was right. I asked him why, when he was recovering in the hospital. He said, because the strong protect the weak. That's the only rule that matters. Is he? Chloe started. Died 5 years ago. Cancer. I was with him at the end. He told me he was proud of what I'd built here. A brotherhood that stands for something. Brick smiled sadly. So yeah, that's why we do this. Because someone did it for me once. They talked until dawn. About her childhood, her career, how she'd missed the warning signs with Derek until it was too late. About Brick's years building the club, the mistakes they'd made, the bridges they'd burned and rebuilt. When the sun started filtering through the windows, Chloe realized something. She felt safe for the first time in 2 years. The next morning, Brick called a meeting in the main hall. Every member of the Grim Reapers sat around a large table, about 30 in total, including those who'd been off-duty during the bar attack. The Van Cess declared war, Brick said without preamble. They burned our clubhouse. They're hunting Chloe because she has evidence that could destroy them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit them first, and we're going to hit them hard. He spread out a map of the city. Chloe's hard drive was connected to a laptop, its contents projected on a screen. Chloe's been helping me go through the files. The Van Cess run their operation through 5 main locations, an underground casino downtown, 2 warehouses where they store imports, a nightclub they use for meetings, and a construction company they use as a front. Thanks to Chloe's records, we know their schedules, their security protocols, their weak points. Hammer leaned forward. What are you proposing? We knock them over. Not knock over. Document. We hit these locations, gather physical evidence to support what's on this hard drive, and we hand everything to the feds. Brick's smile was predatory. And maybe, in the process, we make it expensive for the Van Cess to keep operating. A younger member named Spark spoke up. What about the cops? Half of them are on the Vance payroll, which is why we're going to bring in someone they can't touch. Brick pulled out his phone and dialed. Agent Morrison? It's Silas Stone. Yeah, it's been a while. Listen, I've got something you're going to want to see. Evidence of racketeering, money laundering, and about 15 other federal charges. The Vance crime family. He listened. No, I'm serious. I've got their accountant and 2 years of records. But I need guarantees of protection. Yeah, I'll wait. He hung up. FBI's interested. They've been trying to nail the Van Cess for a decade. Morrison's coming out here tomorrow with a protection detail. But until then, we're on our own, and we need more than just financial records. We need to show physical criminal activity. The raids were planned with military precision. That night, 3 teams moved out. Team 1, led by Hammer, hit the warehouse on the east side. They weren't there to steal, they were there to photograph. Crates of illegal weapons, drugs, stolen merchandise. Hammer's team documented everything with cameras, took samples, and slipped out before security even knew they'd been there. Team 2, under Torch's command, infiltrated the underground casino. Posing as high rollers, they wore hidden cameras and recorded mob bosses making deals, money changing hands under tables, dealers who were clearly operating outside gaming regulations. Team 3 was Brick himself, along with 4 others, hitting the construction company. According to Chloe's files, this was where the Van Cess buried bodies, literally. The company took on projects in remote areas, poured foundations, and sometimes added unintended materials to the concrete. Using ground-penetrating radar equipment borrowed from a sympathetic construction worker, they found 3 anomalies beneath a recently poured foundation at a suburban development site. Brick marked the locations with GPS coordinates and took soil samples from nearby areas. "Is this enough?" asked a biker named Wrench, watching Brick work. "Combined with Chloe's files? It's more than enough." It's a Rico case wrapped up with a bow. They were back at the compound by 3 a.m., exhausted but successful. Chloe waited in the common room, anxious, until she saw Brick walk through the door. "Did you find anything?" He smiled, a real smile this time. "We found everything." The FBI arrived the next afternoon in 3 black SUVs. Agent Morrison was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who looked like she'd seen everything twice. She listened to Chloe's story, reviewed the hard drive, examined the evidence the bikers had collected, and nodded grimly. "This is good work," she said to Brick. "Illegal work, mind you, breaking and entering, trespassing. But good. And since you're handing it over to us, we can probably overlook how you obtained it. We'll get warrants based on your intel, conduct official searches." "How long before you move on the Van Cess?" Brick asked. 48 hours. We need to coordinate with multiple agencies, get our ducks in a row. The Van Cess have lawyers that could tie this up for years if we don't do it perfectly. She looked at Chloe. "Ms. Evans, I'm authorizing protective custody for you. You'll be transported to a federal safe house until the trials." Chloe looked at Brick, then back at Morrison. Can I have a few hours? To say goodbye?" Morrison softened slightly. "A few hours. But we need to move you before dark. The Van Cess have to know by now that you're planning something." After Morrison left to coordinate logistics, Chloe found Brick in the garage, working on his motorcycle. The physical labor seemed to calm him. "Guess this is it," she said quietly. He didn't look up. "Guess so. You'll be safe. That's what matters. I don't want to go." Now he looked at her. "What? I mean, I know I have to. For the trial. But after, can I come back?" "Here." Brick set down his wrench. "Chloe, you're going to get your life back. Your career. Your freedom. You can go anywhere, do anything. Why would you want to come back to a biker compound?" "Because for the first time in years, I feel like I'm somewhere I belong." Before Brick could respond, Shotgun ran into the garage, his face pale. "Brick, we've got a problem. Big problem." They ran to the security room, where Hammer was rewinding camera footage. "Watch this," he said, pointing to a screen. The footage showed one of their newer members, a kid named Diesel, only been with them 6 months, on his cell phone near the gate. The timestamp was from the previous night. Hammer enhanced the audio. "Yeah, they've got her here. The compound. No, she's not leaving until the feds pick her up tomorrow. I don't know. Man, they're paying me 50 grand to tell you where she is, not to strategize." Brick's fist slammed into the wall, leaving a dent. "Where is he?" "Took off 2 hours ago. Cleaned out his locker, left his cut on his bed. So the Van Cess know where we are. They know the FBI is coming. Which means..." The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. And then they heard it. Vehicles approaching. A lot of them. Battle stations. Brick roared. "Hammer, get Chloe to the safe room. Everyone else, arm up. They want a war. Let's give them one." Through the security cameras, they could see them coming. A convoy of black vans and SUVs, at least 10 vehicles. Men pouring out, armed with more than just handguns. Rifles. Body armor. But the Van Cess had made one critical mistake. They assumed the Grim Reapers were just a motorcycle club. They weren't. They were a brotherhood that had been preparing for this kind of assault for years. The compound's defenses activated like a choreographed dance. Floodlights blasted to life, blinding the attackers. Steel shutters slammed down over windows. Bikers took positions behind reinforced barriers that had been built into the compound's design. In the safe room, a reinforced basement chamber lined with cinder blocks and steel, Chloe huddled with Marlene and 2 other women, listening to the sounds of battle above. "Brick's been through worse," Marlene said, trying to sound confident, but her knuckles were white where she gripped a baseball bat. "He'll handle this." Above them, Brick was doing exactly that. "They've got numbers, but we've got the high ground and preparation," he said into his radio. "Teams 1 and 2, flanking positions. Team 3, hold the main gate. Do not let them breach. Non-lethal if possible, but protect yourselves first." The Van Cess men opened fire first. Bullets pinged off steel shutters and reinforced walls. The Reapers returned fire, but with precision, aimed shots meant to disable, not kill. Brick had been clear. They were defending, not murdering. Everything had to be justifiable. Torch, positioned on the roof with a hunting rifle, took out the tires on 3 vehicles, stranding them. Wrench, manning a spotlight, kept blinding the attackers every time they tried to advance. Hammer, built like his namesake, physically wrestled 2 men who'd made it over the fence, slamming them into the ground hard enough to knock them unconscious. But the Van Cess kept coming. "They've got a battering ram," someone shouted. Brick ran to the gate just as a reinforced truck slammed into it. The chain link buckled but held. Second impact. Third. On the 4th hit, the lock shattered. The gate swung open. Brick stood in the gap, alone, arms spread wide. Behind him, the compound. Behind the compound, Chloe. "You want in," he bellowed at the mob of armed men. "You go through me first." 20 men with guns faced one man with nothing but his fists and his fury. They hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, the Grim Reapers rallied. Motorcycles roared to life on either side of Brick. 30 bikers, revving engines, creating a wall of sound and steel. The lead Vance enforcer, a scarred man named Marcus, stepped forward. "We don't want you, Stone. Just give us the girl and the hard drive. Walk away, live to ride another day." Brick's laugh was hollow. "You really don't get it, do you? We don't negotiate. We don't surrender. And we sure as hell don't hand over someone under our protection." He cracked his knuckles. "But I'll tell you what. You and me. Right here. I win, you all leave. You win, you get the girl." Marcus smiled. "You're insane." "Probably. But I'm also right." What happened next would be talked about in biker circles for years. Marcus was a professional fighter, ex-military, trained in Krav Maga, outweighed Brick by 30 pounds of pure muscle. He came at Brick fast, hard, efficient. Brick took the first 3 punches, 1 to the ribs, 2 to the face, without flinching. Then he went to work. Years of street fighting, of defending the weak, of righteous fury poured into every strike. Brick wasn't trying to win a match. He was trying to make a point. He pummeled Marcus with methodical brutality, each punch a statement. "You don't touch our people. You don't threaten our family. You don't win." Marcus went down in under a minute, unconscious before he hit the ground. The other Vance enforcers stared. "Anyone else?" Brick asked, breathing hard, blood trickling from a split lip. Sirens wailed in the distance. Multiple sirens. The FBI, arriving ahead of schedule. One of the Vance men cursed. "Fall back. Move. Now." They ran, dragging Marcus with them, piling into the vehicles that still had working tires. Within 2 minutes, the compound was clear except for the destruction they'd left behind. Agent Morrison's SUV screeched through the broken gate 30 seconds later. She took one look at the scene. Bullet casings, unconscious men zip-tied to fence posts, Brick standing in the middle of it all like an avenging angel, and shook her head. "Mr. Stone, you are either the bravest or the stupidest man I've ever met." "Probably a bit of both," Brick admitted. "But they didn't get her. That's all that matters." With federal protection now official and overwhelming, the Van Cess ability to threaten Chloe evaporated. Morrison placed her in a hotel under 24-hour guard while they prepared to move her to a secure location. But first, there was unfinished business. Derek Vance was arrested at his apartment the next morning. He tried to run, actually jumped out a second-story window, and broke his ankle in the landing. Federal agents picked him up before he'd hobbled 20 feet. But Vincent Vance was slipperier. When agents raided his estate, they found it empty, cleaned out. He'd run. "We've got warrants at every airport, border crossing, and port," Morrison told Brick during a debrief at the compound. "He won't get far. Men like Vincent always make mistakes when they're desperate." She was right. 3 days later, Vincent Vance was spotted at a private airfield, trying to board a plane to a non-extradition country. But he'd made a critical error. He'd called Derek from a burner phone, trying to arrange for his son to join him. Derek, facing 30 years in federal prison and looking for any deal he could get, told the FBI exactly where his father would be. The arrest was anticlimactic. Vincent, dressed in an expensive suit and carrying a briefcase full of cash, saw the federal agents and simply stopped walking. He knew it was over. But there was still one person who needed closure. Morrison arranged it carefully, with strict legal boundaries. Chloe would be allowed to see Derek, under controlled circumstances, before he was transferred to federal holding pending trial. The meeting room was gray, sterile, with a table bolted to the floor. Derek sat on one side, shackled, his ankle in a cast. He looked smaller than Chloe remembered, diminished. She sat across from him, with Agent Morrison standing by the door. "You wanted to see me?" Derek asked. Even now, there was a hint of arrogance in his voice, like he still thought he had power here. Chloe placed her hands flat on the table, steady and sure. "I wanted to see you one last time so you'd understand something." "Understand what?" "That I'm not afraid of you anymore. Not now. Not ever again." Her voice was calm, strong. "You tried to make me small. Tried to make me think I was nothing without you. But you know what you actually did? You made me realize how strong I really am." Derek's jaw tightened. "If you hadn't stolen." "I didn't steal anything. I took evidence of crimes. Your crimes. Your family's crimes. And because of that, you're going to prison for a very long time." She leaned forward slightly. "Every day you're in there, I want you to remember that this happened because you underestimated me. Because you thought you owned me. You never did. I own myself. I always have." She stood up. "Goodbye, Derek. I hope you learned something in prison. But I doubt you will." As she walked out, she heard him call after her, angry, desperate. "You ruined my life." She didn't turn around, just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, toward the door, toward the future, toward freedom. Outside, Brick was waiting on his motorcycle. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Lighter," she said. "Like I just put down something heavy I'd been carrying for too long." "Good, because I've got something for you." He pulled out a package wrapped in leather. Inside was a vest, a cut, in biker terms. Black leather, pristine, with the Grim Reaper's patch on the back. But where a member's road name would usually be, there was something different, property of no one. "Marlene's idea," Brick said with a rare smile. "You're not a member. We don't have women members. It's not a gender thing. It's just tradition, but you're family. And family wears our colors." Chloe put it on. It fit perfectly. "There's something else," Brick said, suddenly awkward. "When all this settles down, when the trials are over and you get your life back, I was thinking maybe you could help us out with the club's finances. Make sure we're running everything legal, proper. We could use someone with your skills. Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a place. If you want it. No pressure." Chloe looked at this giant of a man who'd risked everything to protect her, who'd shown her what real strength looked like. Not violence, but standing up for what's right, even when it cost you everything. "I want it," she said. The trials took 8 months. Both Derek and Vincent Vance were convicted on multiple federal charges: racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, witness intimidation, and dozens more. Derek got 25 years. Vincent got life without parole. 12 other members of the Vance organization took plea deals, testifying against the family in exchange for lighter sentences. The empire that had terrorized the city for 3 generations collapsed in a matter of weeks. Chloe testified at both trials, calm and collected, walking the jury through every document, every transaction, every crime. She never wavered, never broke down. The frightened woman who'd run screaming into a bar was gone. In her place was someone stronger. The judge in Vincent's trial made a point of thanking the Grim Reapers by name. "While I cannot officially condone some of your methods," she said, "I can acknowledge that without your intervention and protection of Ms. Evans, this prosecution would never have been possible. This city owes you a debt." The Iron Keg was rebuilt, bigger and better, with insurance money and donations from grateful community members who'd been victimized by the Vances over the years. The grand reopening was a block party, with half the city showing up. And through it all, Chloe and Brick's relationship deepened. Not a romance born of drama or desperation, but something quieter, stronger, built on mutual respect, shared trauma, and the knowledge that they'd stood together against the darkness and won. 18 months after that rainy night, Chloe stood in the compound's garage, reviewing financial spreadsheets on her laptop. The Grim Reaper's business operations were now completely legitimate. A motorcycle repair shop, a security consulting firm, and a halfway house for domestic abuse survivors, funded by their profits. "You've made us respectable," Brick said, walking up behind her. "I'm not sure how I feel about that." She laughed. "You're still plenty intimidating. Trust me." Outside, the sound of motorcycles rumbled. The club was preparing for a charity ride, raising money for the local women's shelter, the same one Morrison had helped expand with a grant using Vance asset forfeitures. You ready? Brick asked, holding out a helmet. Chloe had her own motorcycle now, a beautiful vintage Harley that Torch had rebuilt for her as a thank you gift. But today, she wanted to ride with Brick. Always ready, she said, taking his hand. They walked out into the sunshine together. The compound was alive with activity, bikers checking their rides, families saying goodbye, dogs running around excitedly. This wasn't a gang. It was a community, a family. Chloe climbed onto Brick's bike, wrapped her arms around his waist, and felt the engine rumble to life beneath them. As they pulled out of the compound, joining the long line of motorcycles heading down the highway, she looked back one last time at the place that had saved her life. Then she looked forward to the open road ahead. She wasn't running anymore. She was flying.